Listen, if you're watching this right now, you've probably just spent the last 3 hours down a rabbit hole. You've Googled Australia 491 visa without job offer at least 5 times. You've watched videos that completely contradict each other. You've read some comment on social media where someone said their friend's neighbor got approved in 2 weeks, and now you're sitting there wondering if Australia actually wants skilled migrants or if this whole thing is just the world's most elaborate psychological experiment. I need you to stay with me because what I'm about to tell you is going to cut through all the noise, all the confusion, and all the nonsense that's been floating around online. This is Aussie Visa and Immigration, and we're talking about the 491 visa exactly as it stands right now going into 2026, based on what states are actually doing, how nominations really work, and why the phrase without a job offer is both completely true and dangerously misunderstood at the exact same time. Before we go any further, let me deal with the biggest source of confusion right now, the elephant in the room that everyone keeps dancing around. The 491 visa itself does not require you to have a job offer. That's not my opinion. That's not some loophole. That's the actual fact. There is no sentence anywhere in the migration regulations that says you must be employed or sponsored by an employer before you lodge your application. That part is real. It's accurate. It hasn't changed. And yet, here's where people get themselves into trouble. Australia is not running a charity program. They're not handing out visas to anyone who shows up with a smile and a dream. So while you don't technically need an employer, you absolutely do need something else that replaces that employer's value in the eyes of the government. And that something else is either state or territory nomination or an eligible family sponsor in a designated regional area. This is Australia's way of saying we want your skills, but we want them where we need them, not where you want to be. That's why this is called a regional visa. That's why it gives you extra points for state nomination. That's why states are the real decision makers in this entire process, not employers, not even the federal government on day one. The states hold the cards here. They decide who gets invited. They decide what occupations they're prioritizing. They decide whether your profile makes sense for their region, and if you don't understand that fundamental shift in power, you're going to spend months wondering why nothing is happening with your application. Now, let me tell you what's actually happening right now in the current migration year. Over the last few months, states have been confirming their new nomination programs, reopening pathways, adjusting criteria, and quietly sending out invitation rounds that tell you far more about what they actually want than any promotional material ever will. Western Australia, Victoria, the Australian Capital Territory, Tasmania, they've all been actively using the 491 visa as a pressure valve for regional skill shortages, and here's the big one that's got everyone's attention. New South Wales has confirmed fresh 491 pathways opening in January, which has understandably caused a small wave of panic among applicants who suddenly realize their documents are still quote-unquote almost ready. Almost ready doesn't cut it anymore, not with competition like this. What you need to understand, and I mean really understand, is that states are not prioritizing job offers the way people assume they are. In many cases, states are prioritizing occupations, local workforce gaps, regional retention, and whether an applicant looks like someone who will genuinely stay and contribute to the area, rather than someone who's going to disappear the moment permanent residency becomes possible. This is exactly why people without job offers are still receiving invitations while others who do have employment are left sitting there waiting, confused, and slightly offended. Because it's not about the job offer itself. It's about whether you fit what that state needs right now. Let me talk about points for a second because this is another area where people tie themselves in knots. Points are not the whole story, but they're still a very big part of it. You need a minimum number of points to even enter the system. That's non-negotiable. But once you're in, states can and do invite people at very different point levels depending on demand, available places in that region, and how desperate they are for specific skills at that exact moment. That's why you'll sometimes see invitation rounds that look shockingly low, and then the next round jumps back up again like nothing happened. People think it's inconsistency. People think the system is broken, but it's not. It's resource management. It's states responding to real-time needs. Now let's talk about New South Wales specifically because it has become the main character heading into early 2026. With specific 491 pathways opening in January, New South Wales is effectively telling applicants if you already have a genuine connection to regional New South Wales, whether through work, study, or skills that align with what we need. We're open to having that conversation, but what the state is absolutely not saying is, everyone come apply and see what happens. Competition is going to be intense. Documentation is going to be scrutinized like never before. And half-prepared applications are going to be quietly ignored, while better-prepared ones move forward without hesitation. This is where many applicants without job offers either succeed or fail. Because without an employer vouching for you, your profile has to do all the talking. Your skills assessment must be solid, not just acceptable, solid. Your English results must be competitive. Your points claims must be accurate down to the last detail, and your occupation must make sense for the state you're targeting. Australia has become very good at spotting applications that exist just to exist. Applications where someone is clearly trying to game the system or applying to a region they have zero genuine connection to. They can see through that now, and they're not entertaining it. Tasmania deserves a special mention here because recent invitation rounds reminded everyone that smaller states play by their own logic. When demand is low in certain occupations, Tasmania has shown it's willing to invite applicants at point levels that would be laughed out of the room in other states. But those invitations are usually tied to very specific circumstances, very specific needs, and very limited numbers. Treating that as a guarantee rather than a signal is how people end up waiting years with no movement whatsoever. Here's something that hasn't changed and probably never will. Australia values commitment. If you're applying for a regional visa while clearly signaling through every part of your application that your heart belongs to Melbourne or Sydney, states can tell, and they will act accordingly. This is why applicants who studied in regional Australia, who live in regional areas, or who have family ties there often perform better, even without job offers. Because their story makes sense. It's coherent. It's believable. Migration at its core is storytelling backed by evidence. You're telling Australia a story about why you fit, and then you're backing that story up with documents that prove it. Timing also matters far more than people realize. Nomination programs operate within annual quotas, and once those numbers are gone, they're gone. It doesn't matter how perfect your profile is. It doesn't matter how many years you've been waiting. Once the quota is filled, that door closes until the next period. That's why being ready when pathways open is often more important than being hopeful after they close. January is not a let's wait and see moment for New South Wales applicants. It's a be ready now or don't bother moment. Let me address something that migration content rarely talks about, the emotional side of all this. Applying for a visa without a job offer feels uncomfortable because there's no external validation, there's no employer email in your inbox, there's no signed contract, there's no "we want you" letter, it's just you, your documents, and a system deciding whether you're useful enough to them. That uncertainty is exactly why people cling to myths, shortcuts, and miracle stories, because the waiting feels deeply personal even when it isn't. Even when it's just bureaucratic process, it feels like it's about you as a person. Here's the truth, and it's both boring and liberating at the same time. Most successful 491 applicants without job offers didn't do anything magical. They didn't have secret connections. They didn't hire some miracle agent who knew a guy. They chose the right state for their occupation. They improved their points wherever possible. They aligned their occupation with real demand that actually existed. They prepared their documents early and thoroughly, and they waited patiently without reinventing their entire strategy every 2 weeks based on someone's Facebook comment. They treated migration like a long game instead of a lottery ticket, because that's what it is. It's a long game. The 491 visa is not fast. It's not glamorous. It's not forgiving of laziness or half-hearted effort, but it is one of the few remaining pathways where Australia still says, if you're willing to go where we need you, we'll give you a shot. That's not nothing in 2026. That's actually significant when you look at how many other pathways have become harder, more restrictive, or closed altogether. So if you're asking whether the Australia 491 visa without a job offer is real, the answer is absolutely yes. But it only works if you replace the missing job offer with something equally valuable in Australia's eyes. Whether that's your occupation being in high demand, whether that's your points being competitive, whether that's your genuine commitment to regional Australia being provable, whether that's your timing lining up with when states actually need what you have. All of those things matter. All of those things can replace the job offer, but you have to bring them. They don't just appear. If you're serious about this pathway, stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop refreshing forms hoping someone will post the secret formula. Start working on what you can actually control. Get your skills assessment done properly. Improve your English score if it's borderline. Research which states are actively inviting for your occupation. Make sure your points claims are documented and accurate. Build a profile that tells a coherent story about why you and that region make sense together. And most importantly, be ready when the pathways open, not 3 weeks after. This is AUSSIE Visa and Immigration, and we're here to give you the real information you need to make informed decisions about your migration journey. If this video helped clear up the confusion, make sure you subscribe because we're going to keep bringing you updates as states release new information, as pathways open and close, and as the migration landscape continues to shift heading into 2026. Drop a comment below and let me know which state you're targeting and whether you're ready for January or still getting your documents together. Let's have that conversation, and remember, migration is not about luck. It's about preparation, timing, and understanding what Australia actually needs from you. Now go do the work.